The Thanksgiving slate of games kicks off with the Green Bay Packers coming into the Den to take on the Detroit Lions. As the sole Lions fan in my family, I can guarantee they'll all be watching my reaction to this game go down. Will I be celebrating in front of the TV or running away to the kitchen to bury myself in baking? We'll find out in the simulation, but first, we've got to get behind the bar and make our drink an Icy Mitten. Thanksgiving weekend, and it's the matchup Lions and Packers fans alike have circled since week one. I know I'm certainly hungry for revenge, but Thanksgiving has not historically been too kind to my Lions. Win or lose, I know I'm going to need a drink to get through this game, so let's start off with the Packers representative, a frozen tundra. Now, despite the name, this drink was not actually created for the Packers. Instead, it was created by Dwayne Chesterman for the Chilled Cocktails magazine in 2021, I think. The article isn't dated, but the copyright down at the bottom of the page says 2021, so that's what I'm going to go with. Regardless, when you look at the actual spec for this drink, you see that this is a real mixologist's cocktail. This drink has some really interesting elements and also some really confusing ones. The core of the frozen tundra is vodka, lime juice, and simple syrup, though those are probably its least interesting elements. See, this drink takes that simple syrup and lime juice, but then muddles it with grapes and basil, adding some fruity and herbaceous notes to this drink. It then shakes all of that with the vodka and a dash of Angostura Bitters, which adds yet another layer of complexity to the drink, before topping it all off with a dash of ginger beer. Now, a dash is a really weird unit to use for ginger beer. I assume it's using dash colloquially, like a little splash of it, because a true dash of ginger beer probably wouldn't show up in this drink. Details aside, the Lions representative is another ginger and vodka drink. It's the Michigan Mule. Now, as far as I can tell, there's no singular Michigan Mule. Instead, a Michigan Mule is marked by two primary modifications to your classic Moscow Mule. The first one is the addition of cherry juice, ideally tart cherry juice, which is a nod to Michigan being the largest producer of cherries in the US. And the second is swapping out your traditional ginger beer for an old representative, our Vernor's Ginger Ale. So with both of these representatives being vodka-based drinks, there's obviously a lot of overlap between the two of them. So the main challenge for this drink wasn't getting the two inspirations to play nicely with each other. It was figuring out a way to blend them while still keeping the end result feel like its own distinctive drink. And I think I managed to achieve that with a final spec of 2 ounces of vodka. Cue comically large Svedka bottle here. I don't use vodka in a lot of drinks because I feel like it's kind of boring, but hey, when the drink calls for it, we got it on hand. One ounce of our tart cherry juice. Actually, 2 ounces, sorry, 2 ounces of our tart cherry juice. This is what we're relying on for the sweetness in this drink, because there is actually a lot of sugar. I know it says tart, but there is still a lot of sugar in this cherry juice. And then 1 ounce of our lime juice. It's 221 for this recipe. I got it wrong and thought it was 211 initially. All right, and now and then 2 dashes of Angostura Bitters. I know the frozen tundra only calls for 1, but with all of the extra ingredients in this drink, I feel like I needed to up that to 2. Honestly, maybe that might have come out more as 3. It's a pretty fast pour. And then I decided to keep the basil in here because this is like sort of the X factor. This is what intrigued me. Normally what I would have done is muddle the basil, but because we don't really have a true syrup in this drink to sort of pull those notes out of the basil with its sugar, instead what I'm going to do is basically flash muddle it by just putting it in the shaker and letting the agitation from the ice as we shake this drink release all of those oils. So just going to toss the basil into our shaker and shake it up. All right, and then we're gonna strain that into our lovely little copper, into our copper mug over some cracked ice. Cracked or crushed, distinction isn't super important. We just really want all that extra dilution that extra surface area is going to give us. Then, of course, top off with our Vernors. Whew. I'm actually surprised that didn't like explode on me because this thing has gone through quite a ride to get here. All right, so this is our Icy Mitten. Let's give it a try. Oh. Yeah, that's just a lovely little flavor combo right there. That cherry and the ginger play together really well. Does the basil come through at all? That was my big question. That's the thing I think I need to go back in to see if. I think it does. I think that basil, it's very faint. It's certainly like, with all of the other flavors in this drink and how loud they all are, I certainly wouldn't say that the basil is like a primary flavor note by any stretch of the imagination. But it does add just like a little brightness to it, honestly. It adds like a nice little like herbaceous quality sort of on the back end of the drink. It's really hidden back in there. But I do think it's there. I think it does actually come through, which I'm very happy about because that's a nice little combo with these other flavors we got going on here. Yeah, and that's easy drinking all day. I mean, that is just so smooth. Like, I'm not gonna spoil what the other week 13 video is, but I filmed it before this one, and let me just say, this drink goes down so much easier than that one did. This is so much smoother. It's, you know, sweet, but not too sweet. The vodka very much like does not come into this at all. Honestly, this drink doesn't even really taste alcoholic in the slightest. It is just like, it's Vernor's, you know, it's that sort of soft, but kind of medicinal ginger vibe that it brings. That cherry juice is just lovely, plays super well with the lime. You get a little bit of sort of like, the Angostura actually comes through a lot less than I was expecting it to. That's a pretty punchy flavor. And I thought it was really gonna like contribute more to this drink, but it lies pretty low. Yeah, really that cherry is the main thing. Really the main thing you taste in this is the cherry. And then everything else is just kind of like slight modifications to the cherry. You know, you do get a little bit of that sort of baking spice note from the Angostura coming through late. You get a little bit of the herbaceousness from the basil. But really, this is a cherry and like a soft touch of ginger kind of drink, and it goes down so smooth. This honestly probably would make a pretty good Thanksgiving drink. You know, I know cranberry is the big Thanksgiving berry, but you could certainly serve this as like a Thanksgiving drink, and I don't think anybody would like bat an eye at it. Honestly, probably the like least Thanksgiving-y part about it is just that this is such a cold drink. Like this is a drink that wants to be enjoyed like at the peak of summer, you know, like the very beginning of football season when it's still quite hot out. And so now, you know, Thanksgiving time when the weather is colder, this drink actually feels a little bit out of place because of just how chilled you can get the drink with that cracked and crushed ice. Yeah, and the straw serves two purposes here. Interesting thing, whenever you have a straw in a drink, right, it's sort of doing two things. The first thing is that it's making it easy to drink the drink, right? Anytime you have sort of, you know, cracked, crushed, blended ice, that straw is really key to making sure that you can enjoy the drink and that you're not getting, you know, large chunks of ice coming up repeatedly. And the other thing that it does is that actual flavor thing where drinking something through a straw, you experience the flavors a bit less than if you were to just sort of like drink it normally. It doesn't have quite as much time to sort of diffuse over your taste buds, so that's why it sort of goes quicker down the throat. And so that combined with the fact that this isn't a super like dynamic or sort of like not interesting, because it is an interesting mix of flavors, but it's not a super deep mix of flavors. You know, this is very much your kind of like summer blockbuster type of, you know, drink. where it's just smooth, easy to drink, not going to ruffle too many feathers, but also not going to do anything sort of too weird or interesting. Yeah, I'm quite happy with how this drink turned out, and now we see if I get happiness or heartbreak in the simulation. Well, the Packers start with the ball and promptly go 3 and out as this Lions defense continues to play well above its pay grade. Meanwhile, the Lions opening drive is all Gibbs as he helps the team make it to the 29-yard line, where the offensive line opens up a massive hole, he hits it, and turns on the afterburners, taking this in untouched for the first score of the game. The Packers' second drive goes better, but a second down sack has them facing down a 3rd and 19. Love dumps it off to Matthew Golden across the middle, but the rookie just barely steps out of bounds, bringing up a 4th and 5. The Packers decide to kick the field goal with whoever they've got at kicker this week, putting their first points on the board. This time it's the Lions who go 3 and out, but the Packers are right back to 3rd and long. Love scrambles and tosses up a jumper to Romeo Doubs, but Meek picks it off, giving the Lions the ball at around the 40-yard line. Facing a 4th and 1, Goff throws to St. Brown on the out route, but his momentum carries him out of bounds short of the sticks, and it's a turnover on downs. In the second quarter, the Packers make their first red zone trip, but on 3rd down, Love is hit as he throws, and the ball skids across the grass. Green Bay settles for the field goal again, making this a 1-point game. However, the Lions answer right back as they draw up some heavy play action with a 7-man protection, giving Goff plenty of time to throw and find a wide-open St. Brown at the 15-yard line, who takes it in for an explosive 67-yard touchdown. In true Wisconsin fashion, Green Bay says, "Hold my beer," and answers with Josh Jacobs making one-man miss and flying downfield. Branch and Robertson are in hot pursuit, but he shakes off BB's tackle and makes it in for the 71-yard touchdown. Things are moving real quick now as Detroit's special teams finally shows up on the kickoff as Sailors gets some good blocks and finds the crease, taking this return all the way across the 50-yard line. With just over a minute 30 left in the first half, Detroit is rolling the dice on 4th and goal from the 4, and it pays off as Goff finds Isaac TeSlaa wide open in the end zone. After forcing a Packers 3 and out, the Madden AI actually competently manages the clock for once, as the Lions use timeouts and smart passes to make it down to the Packers' 16-yard line. Good old Jake Bates hits the chip shot from there to put the Lions up 24-13 at the half. Both offenses are slow to start in the second half. Detroit's second drive looks promising until Jared Goff airmails a pass intended for Isaac TeSlaa, and it's picked off by Xavier McKinney, who returns it out to the 25. Instead of going with a field goal to make this an 8-point game, the Packers go for it on 4th and 5, and this time it's Matthew Golden's out route that comes up short of the sticks. However, he redeems himself on the Packers' following drive, catching this pass in traffic and then turning on the burners to outrun the entire Detroit defense, taking it 72 yards downfield for the longest score of the day. Down 5, the Packers go for 2, but a penalty backs them up to the 10-yard line, and Romeo Doubs hauls in this pass, but is dragged down just short of the goal line. The Lions' next drive eats up most of the rest of the fourth quarter, letting Jahmyr Gibbs essentially ice the game as he bounces this outside and somehow springs free from these tackles for a 4-yard touchdown. The Packers aren't dead quite yet, though, as they make it to the 25 with about 2.5 minutes left. This is a must-convert 4th down, though, and Kirby Joseph flies in to barely bring down Wicks shy of the sticks. From there, the Lions are able to run out the rest of the clock, eventually kneeling it out and blessing me with a happy heart on this Thanksgiving as Detroit wins 31-19. Well, a win would certainly give me one more thing to be thankful for. I think this game is really going to be a story of which team shows up. For the Packers, that's going to be largely determined by whether their receivers can catch the damn ball, and whether whoever they have kicking field goals can make them. For the Lions, it's going to come down to whether the interior of their O-line can hold up against this Packers defensive front, and whether they can establish their run game. Ultimately, I give my Lions the slight edge, but this will definitely be a stressful one. Both of these quarterbacks turned in decidedly mixed performances. Jordan Love led the way in passing yards, but at least some of that can be chalked up to higher passing volume due to game script. He also had that one interception, which ultimately didn't hurt, as the Lions gave it right back. Speaking of interceptions, Jared Goff's did hurt, as it killed a promising drive and was just a truly inexcusable overthrow. However, that's one of only 2 incompletions in this game, and he had 2 passing touchdowns, so it's difficult to say who truly had the better game. However, there's no difficulty in identifying which running back had the better game, as Jahmyr Gibbs dominated on the ground, posting a whopping 174 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, Josh Jacobs did also have a good game. 93 yards and a touchdown is nothing to sneeze at, but those numbers are skewed by his 71-yard touchdown. That was his only explosive run of the game, and taking that out drops his yards per carry all the way down to 2.4. Meanwhile, Gibbs had 3 explosive runs and was consistently averaging above 5 yards per carry, letting Detroit pretty much move the ball at will. Those two both led their respective teams in receptions as well, a return to Madden disproportionately throwing to running backs. Both of these backs can certainly catch the ball, but they tend to average 2 to 4 catches per game, not 7. Just below them sits Amon-Ra St. Brown, who looks back in top form, posting 5 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown. Matthew Golden is the only Packer who really jumps off the stat sheet, as that long touchdown boosted him up to 106 yards on only 4 catches. Now, the Lions still have Sam Laporta for this one, since the Madden roster hasn't updated yet, but regardless, he didn't see much involvement in this, bringing in only 3 catches for 22 yards. This will actually be a really interesting matchup with both teams missing their star tight ends, though Musgrave put up decent numbers in place of Kraft, 4 catches for 49 yards. I imagine we'll see a lot of 11 personnel from the Packers, and probably a bunch of 11 and 21 personnel from the Lions. Staying on tight ends briefly as we transition to the Monte Carlo sim reveals something interesting. See, in the current version of the sim, swapping players changes their catch rate and yards after catch, but it doesn't change their target percentages. As a result, Brock Wright sees an unusually high 4, almost 5 catches for 41 yards. The rest of the stats feel more reasonable, at least by Monte Carlo standards, with Jared Goff barely breaking 200 passing yards and Jordan Love falling short. Unlike in Madden, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery split touches in the sim, each putting up around 50 yards, while Josh Jacobs puts up another healthy performance for the Packers. Finally, the score distribution in this game is heavily concentrated in the lower scores, but with quite a long tail. Out of the 10,000 simulated games, there was one where Green Bay scored 63 points. The most common outcome is far more pedestrian, however, a 21-14 Lions victory, just barely edging out a 14-14 draw. As a result, it's not particularly surprising that the average of all the games falls between these two outcomes. Lions get the turkey legs, 18-15. Do you agree with the simulations, or do you envision a different future? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As a reminder, our drink for this matchup is the Icy Mitten, smoother and colder than a freshly frozen lake. If you make it, please let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear your suggestions for what drink should be your team's representative. Stay curious, stay thirsty, and I'll see you in the next one.